Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to June's Next Partner webinar. My name is Lisa Friedlander. I'm the CRO over here at Next, powered by Schulman Rogers. Next is an innovative and award-winning legal platform for startup and emerging growth companies. And our monthly partner webinars are just one way that we contribute to the ecosystem, help educate founders, and de-risk their startups. I am super excited today to have Joey Aurora, the managing partner of The Outpost, to talk about a really important subject that is very mysterious to myself and other people. So we're going to shine a light on how to get government non-dilutive funding. There is nothing more critical or important for a founder raising capital than securing non-dilutive funding. It shows credibility, it shows traction, and obviously you're not giving up any equity. So this webinar is designed to educate you about the SBIR and STTR process and programs. The programs aim to fund small businesses and research institutions to develop innovative technologies that could benefit the federal government, in particularly in national security. There's lots of information to dive into. Joey, thrilled to have you. Joey is a startup founder and ecosystem builder with a passion for connecting entrepreneurs to government opportunities. I am really grateful to have you, Joey, here and your colleague, Carrie. And with that, I will turn it over to you. Just a note, Joey would love for this to be conversational and informative and informal. So if you have questions as he presents, feel free to raise your hand. Feel free to add questions to the chat. Carrie and I will monitor and interrupt accordingly, but we'll also have time at the end for Q&A.
What happens is that...
All right, Joey, I'll turn it over to you to share your screen and get started. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa, for the fantastic introduction. It's really nice to be partnered with you guys and working to help drive awareness and engagement of how to get after some non-dilutive capital opportunities. So thanks for being a good partner in this on the legal side, and excited to talk about how we can help startups get more money. And one of the things I'm most excited about for this call today is that I don't recognize any other names other than the people on our team. So this is nice because it's a fun breakout to a different crowd of folks that, I don't know your experience or engagement in the federal sector. So as I dive in today, I would love if you guys can throw in chat or the Q&A if you have any experience with the SBIR or STTR programs, if you've won any awards and or what tech sector you're in. We heard about some drones, we heard about some child care tech. So wanted to just get into a little bit deeper understanding so I can tune some of the examples to what you all are interested in. So if you can throw that in chat, I'd really appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and start diving in here. And for those of you that are on the recording or watching this later, if you are interested in learning more, we can always dive in. All right, so everyone should be able to see my screen. And today we're going to be talking about dual use opportunities, and we're going to do a little bit of a focus on the SBIR STTR program through the Air Force lens, because the Air Force created the largest open door for companies to get started. And as a little bit of a bonus, I'm also going to talk about challenge.gov and the challenge process. So if you're thinking like, hey, we're building a startup, we're either raising money, we're selling our product, we're mastering that, and we want to explore what it looks like to sell into the government space. Like, hey, what are my options? How do I get on contract with the US government? Well, good news, there's a wide variety of options here that you can go into. And, today we're going to dive into only a few segments of these. And you might be asking also like, hey, why am I the one talking about this? So I'm the managing partner here at The Outpost. As Lisa mentioned, our team has helped over 200 companies win over 480 million in government contracts. And we've helped companies scale to long-term programs of record. I was in the Air Force for 12 years. We helped stand up some of the Air Force's innovation arms and help companies transition with over $2.4 billion in funding. So we've been there, we've done this, help companies transition on the inside, and now we've built a company to help companies do that here on the outside. And we are in the active process of doing that. And education, I believe, is a core part of being able to get people excited and down this pathway. So let's dive into a couple of these contract strategies today and build on there. So I wanted to highlight the challenges first to get started today, and then we'll go through the different SBIR, STTR agencies. There are 11 different agencies that do SBIR and STTR programs. Today we're covering the Air Force and Department of Defense because it has the largest budget of the entire program as well. So we'll dive into that. So you're like, hey, what are challenges, right? When I think about challenges, I'm like, hey, this is something hard that I have to go do. Well, the US government authorized the Competes Act in 2010, which said the US government can put out challenges of key topics or areas of interest that the US government has to help solve problems. And these can be big, very difficult challenges, or they can be challenges in a particular tech area. So there's key sites to watch out for this year. And those are AFWERX Challenge, challenge.gov, and the AI Cyber Challenge. I'm going to go over the first two today. And I wanted to quickly highlight for you, if you're looking at non-dilutive funding and opportunities to engage in the prize competition space, the challenge.gov is one of the best places you can go. And this is a super friendly, good website to check out. There's easy ways to stay informed, check out events. And when you're going here to see, like, hey, is there something that's relevant to me? You can see all of the challenges that are open through this amazing search bar and opportunity. And there's topics in here from everything from, hey, we're seeing a special forces topic here. There's a school-focused topic. We're seeing topics and challenges around AI infrastructure. We're seeing stuff around radio frequency. The FAA is doing a data challenge. So as you're taking a look at these different areas, this might be different places that you can go look, find tie-ins to what you're interested in. And so this is a great way to go check out what challenges are out there. If I were you, I would just put a quick reminder on your calendar that at the start of each month, check out what challenges are out there, see what's upcoming, see what you can submit to. This is a great way to get engaged and get involved. Even from a month ago when I last showed this website, we're starting to see a whole new set of challenges that have been released that are all open here until the end of August. So you're seeing a lot of turnover and a lot of good outcomes from this, where you are probably going to get non-dilutive capital. And this one has an opportunity to win $1 million in prizes. This one has a $250,000 prize pool. So you're going to see a lot of these transition into unique opportunities where you actually have a stakeholder lined up and a customer that cares about where this problem is headed. And that's one of the great things about the challenge process, is that you're engaging directly with that end customer to go deliver your product. And if you're talking about federal business development, that's one of the hardest things that we know, right? Selling into federal is like selling into large enterprises. And you have to make sure that you're identifying, who are the right people that you're talking to. Any questions on the challenge.gov site before I switch over to the AFWERX Challenge site? All right, I will jump over to the AFWERX Challenge site. So on the AFWERX Challenge site, this one is specifically focused on the Air and Space Force side of the house. And the really amazing thing about the AFWERX Challenge process is that it truly brings together people across different domains to design the challenge ahead of it being launched live. And so right now you're seeing that there's not an active challenge today, but we know that they're in the process of the Super Goggle Digital Design Challenge, and that they're going through what they call a showcase phase. So they pick the top companies and they go through like who are the top companies they want to work with, and they engage with the military stakeholders on that process. If you are taking a look at this website, you might be like, hey, what other areas could that apply on the Air Force side? They did a helmet challenge. They did an airfield maintenance challenge. You're going to see some space challenges in here. So you'll see a lot of interesting different things if you break down the challenge process here. You'll see if you go up top, there's the air-to-air refueling challenge. They have a digital spaceport of the future, alternative position navigation and timing. So those are the types of things that you're also going to see on the AFWERX Challenge process. This is going to be a lot more tied to the military side. And you're also going to have stakeholders who are bought in on the back end of this as a way to drive the next step in procurement. A big part of the AFWERX Challenge process is to only bring challenges that have a long-term transition partner already engaged and involved. And that's a big part of what we're trying to drive towards. So any questions on the challenge process? All right, we're going to dive into some of the SBIR, STTR pieces.
You have
Dave,
one
before that, thanks, Lisa. You mentioned, Dave, hey, what do we mean by deep stakeholder engagement as part of the challenge? And what are the top levers a founder can pull in the DMV region to be effective at deep stakeholder engagement? Those are two great questions. And so when we're talking about deep stakeholder engagement in a challenge, you have the customer who's going to be the long-term buyer, who is a part of the challenge process usually. And you're going to have people who are the end users. So these are the people that are actively using the technology on a day-to-day basis. Generally in the challenge process, you're going to find that both of these stakeholders are involved in the design, announcement, and the grading of the competition as well, right? They have to evaluate what the right use cases are. Challenges tend to be a little bit more unique in the cone of opportunities in the federal government process. So when you're talking with these people, they know they're conducting market research as they're going through the challenge process, which means that they can talk to you. They want to ask questions. They want to learn about how you're using your technology today. And that's a big part of why the challenge process is so effective and useful when you're going through these conversations, because you often can learn more about what challenges they're facing, what opportunities there are, because you can actually have a conversation with them. And a lot of the time when you're going through a solicitation response to a government proposal, you might not have that opportunity. And in the challenge process, you absolutely do. And then you ask like, hey, what are the top levers a founder can pull of being engaged in the DMV region? So if you're in DC, Maryland, or Virginia, I would say you have a distinct advantage, especially engaging in the federal government side, because there's constantly a ton of events that are free to go to. So if you want to engage in the DMV region, check out, like, I know tomorrow the Nexus event is happening, and it's a free event put on for anything to do with software-defined statecraft. So that's going to be an amazing event to go to. I know that the Air Force Association has events. I know the Army Association also has events. And these tend to be free events that you can go to and attend as a member of the community and as a startup. And that's where you can get to network and meet with both the senior level decision makers, but also their staff. And I would say like that's the biggest advice of someone engaging in this space is you need to get the decision maker excited about it, but the real work happens with the action officers, the people that are going to go out and execute on that idea. And you need both the decision maker as the general officer and also his team or her team to be involved in that process and say, yes, we want to make this happen. Because they're going to help drive the day-to-day work of like defining milestones, working with contracting, identifying budget. All of that comes together in those conversations. So if you're in DMV, I'd say events are your best thing, especially a lot of the ton of free networking events that exist. All right, now to dive into SBIR and STTR. You might be asking, what does Small Business Innovation Research stand for? Or what does STTR stand for? It's Small Business Technology Transfer. And what is this? It is America's seed fund, and this is powered by the Small Business Administration. And what this allows is for non-dilutive capital to go to startups that are in the idea phase all the way up to companies that are prototyping and selling their product and want to adapt it to different potential benefits for the federal government. So the Air Force has taken a very unique approach to approaching SBIR. They have a $1.4 billion budget for the SBIR process each year. And their focus is to drive a dual use approach. They want to take companies that are selling commercially and be able to turn that into an opportunity for companies to also sell into the government space. And the reason that they're doing this is they want to get the best technology that's occurring in the commercial world and bring that into the military. The model where research and development was done by government in the 1900s has completely changed. Government is no longer the largest funder of novel technologies, and especially post World War II and post the Cold War, we were really seeing that, hey, the U.S. was driving, U.S. government in particular, right? Like drove the invention of GPS, drove the invention of the internet, and it helped found Silicon Valley and a lot of the technologies that came out of there. And now we're seeing that there's dozens and dozens of companies out there, and hundreds of thousands, I would say, that are investing in this space. And we're actually seeing the ratio flipped. There's about $500 million of independent R&D happening at these companies on a yearly basis, and only about 100 billion happening at the government level. So you're seeing a complete flip here where there's $500 billion going through private companies, and the innovation is happening there on the edge. Now the Air Force is asking, how do we capture this and build on it for the future? And that's why we're trying to build to a national approach to security. And that's the whole intent behind the dual use approach here. And so how does that tie into the SBIR versus the STTR capital? How do you know if you qualify? Well, if you're here, you're probably here because you're a startup and you're engaged with the law firm, or you're engaged and interested in getting capital. So that's great, as long as you're a startup with less than 500 employees and you're majority American owned, then you can apply to the SBIR program. Big difference is if you're applying to the STTR program, you need to partner with a nonprofit research institution to perform at least 30% of that work. And so there's the STTR program is a bit more competitive and requires a research partner to go in with you as well. All right, so you've been seeing these words around open topic versus specific topic. Well, what does that mean? The Air Force operates a open topic call, which says that, hey, if you have a startup and you have an idea that you're working on, you can jump in and share that with the Air Force and say, hey, here is a area I think that this could be applicable to the Air and Space Forces. And you get to submit that and define that idea. And they fund about 700 of these each year. And the entire intent behind this is that they want to take in the novel ideas, as we talked about commercial R&D being the big win here, is how do we capture those ideas and say, hey, there's a fit here for further government experimentation or prototyping. And that phase one ends up being a $75,000 3-month contract where you get to go define the milestones and do a feasibility study with your government stakeholder. And then we take a look at that and say, okay, hey, open topic means you can do anything, and there's an initial phase one process. Well, what's the specific topic? The specific topic is a defined problem set that the military is giving out. And the specific topics are actually done all across every SBIR program. So we talked about the 11 different agencies earlier. And so it's across all of those that the specific topic exists. And the awards vary anywhere from 50,000 to upwards of 200,000 for your phase one SBIRs or STTRs. And numbers here are on the Air Force side as well, if you're looking at that. So if you haven't looked at the SBIR programs before, I highly encourage you to do so. And today we're going to dive in a little bit more on the open topic strategy, because this is the single best open door for any company to get engaged here within the US government space. So, all right, let's chat a little bit through the open topic strategy. So
really quick, Joey, really quick, it looks like from time you had referenced an event tomorrow.
Yeah.
Asking if you could repeat the name of the event.
Yeah, I can absolutely do so. It's Nexus 24. It's run by Applied Intuition, and it'll be at the Kennedy Center tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah. The open topic strategy. So the open topic process is basically a front door into engaging with the Department of the Air Force. So when I say Department of the Air Force, that includes both Air Force and the Space Force. So you actually get an open door into both organizations, companies, as you take a look at it. And when you are submitting for a phase one process, this is meant to be a large open funnel. So they're going to do about 700 of these awards a year. And there are $75,000 for SBIR and $110,000 for STTR. And that funnel then goes into, okay, hey, this is a customer discovery feasibility study. Now, who here has found an Air Force customer that they want to work with and prototype a project with? And there is a $1.25 million follow-on contract, or a 1.8 for STTR, where you get to work on prototyping your project with your Air Force or Space Force partner. And you co-develop those milestones, you develop and submit a customer memorandum as part of this process. And you're identifying, hey, here's a need that the Department of the Air Force has. We believe we can fill that, and here's how both sides are going to approach it. And there's about 300 to 500 of these awards each year. So you're going in from this funnel of initial like 700 to a few hundred less for prototyping. And then there's some scale up awards. So about 20 awards each year are up to $15 million to scale that project. And that you have to have a prototype project in place in order to pursue that. This is a great funnel and opportunity that I've seen over 50 different companies go through successfully and transition to long-term contracts on the military side. And so this open door, one of the other key things to note about this is it allows you to get a sole source contracting opportunity for any federal government work related to the SBIR program that you're working on. So this is a massive hack to get into the government space. All right, so we talked about a little bit about the types of contracts here. With the open topic phase ones, it's that feasibility study and customer discovery process. It's a 3-month period of performance. Specific topic on the Air Force side is up to 150K and 9-month period of performance. And they have specific Air Force customers that those are tied to. The phase twos are going to be 1.25 to 1.8, a 21-month period of performance. You definitely need this customer memorandum as well to engage with that. And specific topic is similar amounts, a little bit longer period of performance, a little bit less awards is what they're going to. And the entire intent behind both of these is they want companies to transition to the long-term awards. And that's really where this phase 3 process comes in. Phase 3 is a misnomer. There's not like a set of money set aside for phase 3. Phase 3 means, hey, you've completed phase 1 and phase 2, and now you have a government customer that's willing to buy directly from you, and they can leverage the sort of the phase 3 authority to go out and execute against that. We'll also talk a little briefly about the StratFi TACFi program. If you already have a phase 2 prototype, you can go up for a large $15 to $45 million awards through the matching funds process. And this is meant to help companies bridge that gap until they can get funding from that program of record and actually get it put into the government budgeting process. So these contracts can be up to 4 years long, and they tie in multiple government stakeholders and program owners as a requirement for the submission process. An amazing thing about this is you get to leverage the research and development funding and get those as matching dollars towards any government customer dollars that are brought to the table. So the goal here was to incentivize getting people involved with the moving budget to build these capabilities. And that is a huge part of why StratFi exists, is that it's to connect people together and drive the right incentives for behavior change of getting new capabilities funded on a year-to-year basis. All right. We talked a little bit about eligibility earlier. So we'll skip through this. You might also be, wondering, hey, if I'm submitting to these programs, what are those evaluation criteria? What are they looking at on the government side? So there's 3 key things that they're looking for. The first one is going to be your technical merit. And they want to know, like, do you actually have the technology developed? Can you actually show the diagrams? Or do you have any research on why this technology should exist and how does it exist in this way? Why are you the right team to do it? Do you have the right background to go out and execute and build in this space? And how does that all work together? And they want to also know what the innovation of this approach is. The SBIR program is looking to funding novel and new technologies as well. So how is this going to be driving the state of innovation forward? That's a big question. The second evaluation criteria is around the defense need, or I'd say like mission relevance to the agency that you're submitting to. And you want to know that you have a specific need that applies to the Air Force. If you're applying to the open topic process, you want to talk through the breadth and applicability of it across not only the initial use case, but how is it going to scale? And then you want to talk about how this works for your particular customer. So let's say you're building a new AR technology and you want to use that for training purposes, for maintenance. Well, have you identified a particular maintenance unit that you want to work with? How are they going to benefit from the use of the augmented reality headset while going through a maintenance operation? Are they going to get the manual while they are in the middle of the task? Is it going to identify what step they're on and be able to cite information back to them? And if you're doing that, well, where does this apply, right? Can this only be done in that particular maintenance hangar, or do you have a system that can do this across maintenance for the entirety of the Air Force or entirety of the Department of Defense? How does that all fit together? Those are things that you need to be able to tell that story here so that you can really hone in on the defense need criteria. Then the last criterion here is going to be the evaluation, commercialization criteria. The seed fund and DoD and Air Force want to know, how are you going to take this technology and make it successful so that you can keep growing and building your company? This is known as America's seed fund, and the entire intent here is we want to enable companies to be successful, get the initial research and development dollars, so you can turn around and go sell that product or technology to the commercial world. We want to continue fostering the great American capitalism that exists. And so you want to be able to talk through your plan for revenue. How are you already selling? How the growth, or you're going to use the R&D to increase the sales for what you're doing. And that, focus on the commercialization side is also there, but you also want to talk about how you're going to do that in the military customer or government customer that you're building out here as well. Any quick questions on evaluation criteria?
There is a question in the chat, Joey. I'm not sure. I had to step out to use the restroom. I'm not sure if you addressed it, from Christopher.
Yeah, I was gonna. So for Chris, I-Core or NSF engagement is not going to be a mix of criteria for submitting to the open topic process. One of the things that'll be helpful there is in being able to define your commercialization plan and being able to define by its the technical merit pieces. So as long as you can better communicate that as a result of going through I-Core, that's what will help you here. So I wanted to go over it quickly. There's the specific topic cycle and the open topic cycle for SBIRs, and the specific topic schedule here closes today, and actually closed 28 minutes ago. This is 12 p.m. Eastern. So that closed today. So there's another specific topic cycle happening. I wanted to highlight this because this happens 3 times a year here. So you're going to see that the next specific topic cycle is going to open up on August 21st. And you expect it to follow roughly the same schedule each year. Now, we were talking today a lot about the open topic process. The next open topic process is actually going to open up here in August, September of this year. And then there's a direct to phase 2 opportunity that'll open up in October, November. So if you're looking at this and planning like, hey, when should I want to engage with the Air Force? Well, you really need to start thinking about that in July of how are you going to start building your proposal? Do you have all your government registration done? And how are you doing all the pieces required to make that successful? So those are some key things to think about as you're thinking, hey, if we want to submit and leverage some of this cool front door open topic process, think about the next open opportunity here in August, September, and that also repeats on a year-to-year basis. The Strat 5 program, the timeline hasn't been announced. We're expecting that it happens sometime this fall. So that's if you have a phase 2 and you're looking at going to bigger and bigger programs, this is a great way to facilitate transition. Now, we talked a little bit about earlier the matching funds process, especially if you're raising venture capital. This is a great way for every dollar of venture funding that you raise to get matching funding on the government side as well. So imagine that you're bringing $30 million of private capital to the table for your Series A. You could bring another $30 million in here of R&D capital that's all non-dilutive. And that is a great way to take a look at scaling your business and continuing to own equity. Because as a startup owner, you're going to want to own that equity and also drive further research and development and actually long-term contracts here with the government side. We have a separate webinar on all StratFi, TACFi, something that we can go through in a little bit here as well. All right, Dave and Dana, I will come back to you on that process in just a second to talk through some of that. All right, so the last thing I wanted to cover is the StratFi and TACFi eligibility. You need to have your phase 2, and you need to have been working on it for at least 90 days. And the cool thing is this last round, they said it could be any phase 2. So you don't have to be just an Air Force an Air Force phase 2. It could be a Army or another entity's phase 2, and you can apply and drive it through the Air Force scaling program as well, as long as you have Air Force stakeholders there on the end. All right, that covers the material I wanted for the webinar. I see a few awesome questions in here as well. So let me jump in and start answering some of these here. Dave, you asked, for the companies that have won larger awards, what have they shared in common relative to their execution and applying for the funds and their flexibility in adapting to the unique requirements by the federal agency, such as obtaining security clearances or other unique agency requirements? All right, let me break that down and start answering these a little bit. What made these companies successful? They had champions across the Department of Air Force or Department of Army or Space Force that they were working with that said, yes, this is a capability that matches a future need. And we want to continue investing in this capability for us. So you have to have champions that are bought off on this. You have to have budget aligned for both the current year and future years. You need to have a clear explanation of how that funding is going to be used and what that capability is going to bring for the warfighter. You need to be able to draw that line all the way from the top level of funding, the strategic mission of the organization, to how is this going to make the warfighter's day more effective and better. And you want to be able to pull that entire thread through to be successful in the Strat 5 process. And then you ask, like, how are they adapting to the unique requirements? This is part of that relationship, business development efforts, that as your company is engaging with the respective organization, you need to be able to understand, hey, do they have those security requirements? Do they have an authority to operate requirement? Do they have base access requirements? All of those things need to be addressed as you're going through the agency and clearance requirements process. And your job in those conversations is to understand what those needs are, who's going to buy off on, need to sign off on that process, and how do you get engaged with them in that execution. So that'll be a key part of what you're trying to drive towards. Dana, you asked, can I talk about how to identify appropriate customers and users in the customer memo? Absolutely. So Dave asked a great question earlier about how do you engage in the DMV area? And we talked a lot about events. And I would argue that that is actually still the best way to get engaged in talking to customers or end users for the customer memo for the US, for the Air Force side and Space Force side. There's a lot of big conferences that happen every year. There, for example, let's say like the Air Force Association conference happens twice a year. I'd say this is a mega conference for the Air Force, right? There's like 5,000 plus people there. They're all engaged. There's big name speakers, and there's a lot of people vying for attention. Well, what do you think about going to the Department of Air Force's IT conference? That happens in Montgomery, Alabama. There's about 1,000 to 2,000 people there. It is all of the right stakeholders for anything that has to do with information technology across the entire Department of the Air Force. You have the keynote speakers that are focused in this tech area, and you have a location which enables better networking, a smaller crowd, and a targeted outreach and conversations. So the best way to identify these folks is to figure out, hey, what is that tech conference or event that you want to go to that is specifically related to your mission area? And then you want to be able to set up those meetings well in advance. So conduct that outreach via LinkedIn, conduct that outreach via emails, cold calls, or get introductions to these people. This is also part of what we do at the Outpost. We help our companies get connected and get those customer memos in place, leveraging the network we have and the experience we have in doing this. We've signed over 180 customer memos at this point for helping our companies get connected. All right, Tom, you asked if there is a repository where you can find good case studies or examples. Yes, there are quite a few of these out there. And I'm happy to share a resource for you after this. And we also have a YouTube Shorts channel where we cover some of these stories and talk about some of these case studies as well. So you can learn about, hey, what's been successful or what's been not out there. All right. That's the end of the current set of questions we have, and we answered a lot going through this process. So any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions for Joey? Feel free to unmute yourself, chime in. I know it's a lot of information, and we'll be circulating the recording as well as the deck, and I'll include both Joey and Carrie's contact information so you guys can get with them. From the little that I've learned about these processes, I very much make it akin to sort of founders of like, when do you want a lawyer? Like, when do you engage with a lawyer? When do you pay a consultant of some kind to help you through to navigate a really complex process that could be critical to the success, life or death of your company? And whether it's Joey and his team at the Outpost, I highly encourage you all to consider, hiring a champion to help you through this process. I've seen it. It's not like you can't do it on your own, just like there are DIY legal solutions, but there's certain things in areas that, in my experience, are worth paying for. So that's just a huge just piece of advice and and suggestion to speak with Joey and Carrie to learn more about how they operate.
Too kind, Lisa. We're here to help. We've helped a ton of companies navigate through this process, and
yeah,
our job today is to provide that education and engage here, right? So, right, that there's a time that people need to jump in and build that team to get started.
Right, absolutely. Well, any other questions? We do have some time left.
Lisa, I have a question. I think I mentioned when we met about my trip to Germany. And so met with quite a few space technology companies, very impressive companies. They'd received their funding. They're already involved in a launch, either in Vandenberg or somewhere else in the country or in this area, and want to pull the trigger to expand in the US, probably like in 18 months, 18 or 24 months. And one vice president said, it was a legal question, sort of like, hey, can we continue to sort of manufacture our goods from Germany, while being able to, sell them to the appropriate customers in the US? And so I know that's a very specific use case example, but can you just talk about, what's the best way for, a group like ours to kind of help these companies? I mean, I get the sense they have their own legal counsel and all of that, but what's the kind of the best way for them to get answers to these questions, or feel like they can figure out what their strategy is going to be based on how they expand into the US?
Just generally, Dave, or with regard to SBIR and government funding?
Generally.
Generally, okay, yeah. I mean, I think they may all have attorneys already, but I think engaging with a US-based startup attorney that understands this stuff and the different ways that you can structure, especially if they're going to start raising investment of some kind, you have to structure it so that the IP or with ownership or whatever it is, that the company, the asset is properly structured, because US investors are not going to want to invest. Typically, they don't want to invest in a non-US company or a company where the asset itself is held, structurally somewhere else. So even if they work with an attorney in their respective country, that's great. I know our firm does that kind of stuff all the time. But there are very specific processes in terms of setting up a Delaware company and then organizing it structurally to enhance the likelihood of success here in the US, but hopefully not overly complicate the full ownership structure of the company.
Great. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions for Joey, or general questions? If not, we can certainly give folks. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say thanks, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we can certainly give folks 20 minutes, back in their day is never a bad thing. Again, huge shout out and thank you to Joey and Carrie from the Outpost. Really appreciate your partnership for Next, and really appreciate your time and efforts in delivering this really important and necessary workshop today. Folks, stay tuned for the recording and the circulation of the deck. Joey included his email. He will be copied on that communication as well. And sign up for more partner webinars. They're all listed on our events page, which is under community on next.law. Follow us on LinkedIn, sign up for our alert, are all great ways to stay in touch. And then lastly, I want to just announce or remind folks of our latest initiative, which is called My Next Raise. It's www.mynextraise.com. It is a new SaaS investor readiness tool that will be launching probably early to mid-July. And we are looking for 250 founders to participate in our beta. If you participate in our beta, you'll get a free year of investor readiness tools. Our premium level is 2,000, 2,500, somewhere around there, but you'll get your annual membership for free for the first year by participating in the beta. Our spots are almost filled. I think we've about maybe 30, 40 spots left. So mynextraise.com. Feel free to spread the word. So thank you all again, Joey, Carrie. Thank you all for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at our next July next partner webinar. Take care.
Thanks. Yeah.